So should I go ahead and kick things off, Lynn?
Yeah.
All right. We don't have a large number of members showing themselves today, but we certainly have some good quality information to share and good quality members. Although all of our members are good quality, of course. So I'll go ahead and just share a quick update. So earlier on this recording, Tom Novotny mentioned that he's reviewing a report. So we issued a draft strategy for the statewide plastics monitoring program. And this is a strategy and a plan for implementing such a program. You know, it's a pretty long thing that could be abbreviated somewhat, or but I think now that it's under review, it'll probably get longer. So this and by the way, when this is a plastics, so both macro and micro, OPC is funding this effort with the idea that it would be delivered to the water board for implementation. So that is being led by Diana Lynn, as well as others at SFEI, with participation from a broad range of experts, including Dr. Novotny. So we are going to be reviewing this, having this review, going through iterations of improvement before it is formally launched. But before the plan and strategy would be formally launched, or at least delivered. But I think OPC is very motivated to move forward with this and get this effort underway. So we're trying to follow through with our end at SFEI to carry this forward. So I think a lot of people who are interested in trash monitoring, I think would be interested in this. This, unlike just looking at the larger trash stream, this is focused on the plastics portion of that stream. So we do have some provisions in there for being able to kind of figure out the amount of plastics of the larger trash burden that we're dealing with here, and how things are changing over time. So that is going to be hopefully a very good development if it moves forward. I should note, in case you're wondering, like, oh my gosh, is this going to be some big burden coming our way? Implementation is contingent on funding. So if there is no funding coming, then it would be very challenging to try and implement any portion of this plan. So a lot of the challenge in devising something like this is the uncertainty of knowing just how much funding might be coming. So a lot of what we're doing is deliberating on just how much can be done with what level of funding. And OPC has been strategizing with the notion that there would be funding coming through state coffers. With the budget the way it is, it seems a little bit less certain now than it did in the past, but we'll kind of see where that leads us. So that I should also note that we have different bodies reviewing this. So Tom Novotny is sitting on the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee. We also have a state advisory group, or the SAG, and they will later be reviewing this. They were the first, and they'll be essentially the last. And in between, we'll be specifically shopping it around and sharing it with different smaller groups, including the water board specifically. So that's that project. Can I ask Gary if you'd like to share any trashy updates?
Yeah, sure. My audio's on. Let's see. Last time I think it was last time, I'm not actually sure. We looked at the EPA Escape Trash Assessment Protocol risk map, right? So it's a predictive model from EPA using factors like land use, and there were some socioeconomic variables. I think they were really just two factors in the model that they used to predict trash risk. Can I share a screen real quick, Tony?
Yeah, Gary, let me give you
Sure.
host privileges real quick.
And so this is a predictive model, right? And last time we talked about the idea of like, well, can we do some comparisons with observations? And I said, oh yeah, I'll run off and look at what we've got on the Central Coast and do some comparisons. So I just wanted to show a picture of that. Let's see.
Yeah, you should be able to share.
Oh, I never use Zoom. How do I share now?
The green share
It's the
screen.
green guy right there. Thanks. So I just thought I'd show you guys what it looked like. This is, you know, in no way sort of comprehensive or definitive. I was just poking around on the Central Coast where we have, right, many years now of
Yeah.
trash observations. I mean, my interest in this is that, right, this is incredibly burdensome to continue to do this monitoring year after year.
Mhm.
And so if there is a way to sort of reduce effort where cities would focus, well, that's going to be really useful. And so this validation exercise of this predictive type of model can be useful. And this model uses a Bayesian framework, which is funny because it's sort of that is the same as what we are
Mhm.
feeding the observations into to get to an output of trash condition and levels of certainty. So on the left-hand side, this is a screenshot from the EPA model. Sorry, I didn't grab the legend in here, but darker orange is worse. Lighter colors are better in terms of trash risk. And on the right-hand side, these are sets of observations for, I don't know, it's like a 5-year period in the city of Santa Cruz. So they're kind of framed the same. And all I did in a number of cities is just kind of squint my eyes and say, like, okay, do we see similar patterns, you know, between the predictive model on the left from EPA and the sets of observations that we see? Probably for orientation, here's the San Lorenzo River going right through there, San Lorenzo River. And lo and behold, you
Slightly
do.
different scales, though. Slightly different scales, right?
Slightly, well, not too different. Slightly, yes. This one, yeah, it's a little bit smaller. I didn't get them framed quite right.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
So, you know, you do see sort of, right, these are the problematic areas downtown alongside the San Lorenzo River. There's a few patches over here. This is kind of where the Natural Bridges Park is. So you see some higher trash risk there along the downtown and river area. On the other side of the river, same sorts of general problem areas that you see in the observed data. So, so far so good. You know, it's whatever these factors are doing, they are capturing something similar to what we seem to see in these observations. And this, I repeated this exercise in 4 different cities around the Central Coast, and similar outcome to what we're looking at. So good job on that model EPA so far. And we're just going to continue to sort of make these comparisons and maybe speak with folks at EPA to see if there's a new application that we can use these outputs for. I think they provide an API to actually pull these outputs from their mapping server. So just wanted to sort of provide that update because I mentioned it at our last meeting to show you folks how the model matches up with a long series of observed trash data.
That's really cool to see. I do wonder, just, you know, based on what you've seen and based on the collections that you've been making, is that very coarse view of things useful to, if you were to, you know, kind of use it either for directed action, you know, that is, we should be doing our monitoring here and not here because it's predicted that this is not a high risk area. So if it's just used to kind of focus your efforts, or is it used to say, we don't need to do, I mean, kind of what I was reading from what you said is maybe we don't need to do so many direct observations if we have these predictive models. So what are you coming away with? Understanding that there does seem to be general alignment, but are you thinking that it might in practice focus your attention, or that it might kind of preclude your attention altogether?
I think it's where, well, I don't think you ever get away from doing monitoring to at least initially throughout your city to focus these efforts. I think it's kind of a weight of evidence approach. It's just another piece of evidence to help direct those efforts. It's definitely not going to help cities meet their compliance requirements, right? Just
Right.
outputs from this model. But it can direct them where they might want to focus their efforts. So yeah, I don't think that anything that comes out of one of these models is going to be useful for meeting the trash amendment requirements, but they have shifted now. Before we were using priority land uses. Did you guys hear this term, right? PLUs, everyone was talking about. And the shift that I'm now hearing is towards significant trash generating areas is the new acronym. So greater flexibility in how those areas are defined. And so the monitoring data is going to provide the primary evidence, but if there are other areas that you weren't able to monitor that you would like to associate the trash generation levels that you have monitored, these model outputs could provide supporting evidence for the veracity of those claims that those sites are representative, which is another new requirement in the oncoming phase 2 city, right? So the small MS4s, they have to demonstrate that where they are monitoring trash is representative of sites throughout the city. So that onus is on them to provide that evidence that wasn't in the previous permit term.
I wasn't attending the last meeting, so I don't have the benefit of the background on the ETAP based, model outputs. How often are they updated? Do you know?
I don't know that they have been updated.
Yeah, I mean to say that if, we have these model outputs, these are the high risk areas, what triggers them to, what inputs might generate new predictive models based on, changes to land use, changes to zoning, permitting, observed trash? Are there certain things that might trigger an update? The reason why I ask is because you can make your, initial observations like, okay, based on these predictions, we should be monitoring here. I would want to know under what conditions we might need to revisit those predictions and reassess exactly where we're doing our monitoring. If I were doing this for my own city at my own scale.
I think, given the factors, I have to look back, but given the factors that are in the model, I think it wasn't land use per se, but it was I think it was the land cover development intensity
Okay.
and the socioeconomic variables that just wouldn't shift very
Right.
quickly. So we're talking,
It
probably
might
a
be
3
like
to 5 year time
census
span.
based.
Yeah.
It might come out every 10 years or something,
Yeah, so I don't think it would be useful for that sort of updating. I think you would need to rely on the monitoring data to sort of iterate and improve those decisions over time. I think it's more of a static tool from my understanding of how it's put together.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And Gary, just to connect with the plastics strategy, the trash generally doesn't get you to where you would need to know what part of the trash stream is plastics, because if let's say the trash stream were, 80% paper, we might not care as much about it for purposes of environmental impact as if it were 80% plastic, right? So that predictive model gets us somewhere, but not to the point where we can say how is the trash stream changing over time? are we converting the trash from plastic to more biodegradable things, even if we're not overall affecting the trash problem, which I understand has its own impacts regardless of its materials. But just, one thing we might be concerned about is how much plastic is making its way into the environment.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that, how that tracks, whether it tracks closely or not, just the sheer volume of trash and the proportionality of plastics in that trash.
Yeah.
At a guess, I would think they would track pretty well. I don't know. Maybe somebody else knows.
Yeah, there were, just anecdotally, there were some concerns when we first went into COVID that PPE, you remember that term, right? The personal protective equipment was going to be out there in the wild, and we had to be concerned about, a lot of the PPE being tossed, as people would do their shopping and then just toss their masks on the ground or what have you, and that they were finding a lot of the trash, the litter that people were finding where PPE was really well represented. That's a case where society shifted slightly, and we would want to know, so how has that affected the trash that we would find out in the wild, so to speak? And certain models don't really apply to those types of events. So direct observation is the way to get to it. And those things can then shift the proportion of plastic versus non-plastic trash. But I think those are pretty unusual conditions. Well, thank you, Gary. Thanks for sharing
Sure.
information. I love the visual references there, and it is very impressive just how well aligned that is. So it will be great to see just how people take those predictive models and put them to use, perhaps.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be keeping tabs.
Thanks, Gary. I just while you're talking, I looked up the on the Trash Free Waters program, and they've created a form for interested parties to participate in helping to update the network, and looks like they plan on updating the model yearly. So
Okay.
I don't know if we want to put ourselves down as an organization that could contribute or collate California data and help provide that, or if we would want to do that individually. Anybody have any thoughts on that? But I'd be interested in signing up.
Is it a national model? Do they have full
Yeah.
coverage across all of the United States? Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. Julian, what does it say, how, like, using actual trash monitoring data to do that, updating the predictive? I mean, I guess that would fall into the Bayesian framework if that's what their intention was.
I don't know if you can read this, but it's just right now it's a simple form, and they had a webinar in December. I wasn't able to go to it, but they probably opened up the hood and explained all that there. Maybe they recorded it, but I mean, this just says they're planning to gather escape trash data around the country to annually update density and material type estimates.
Cool. Yeah, that's okay. So that is,
the material type estimates, yeah.
Yeah. Also,
Wow.
it's
Okay.
exactly what we're I think I'll get, maybe we could, yeah, I mean, it'd be great to have somebody here again to talk about how we might best do that, either individually or as a group, because it makes sense. You have these factors with full coverage everywhere. Monitoring data aren't collated, they're only in some locations, but you can have a starting point for trash risk and then update that risk given new information from monitoring data year to year. So I
to refine
misspoke
the
there on my
algorithm.
updating comment. I think that's great.
Well, I think they haven't updated it yet. You're right that they just used a bunch of static data that they got from existing sources, and I think it probably, well, there must have been some trash density data that went into it, but
I do wonder if the model was informed by Gary, your own data. Like, the reason why it aligns so well is because the inputs were your data,
paper.
right? Observations could have been part of the stream going in, where they had them, and then they did extrapolation where they didn't have them. right? Like, so where those factors match, they applied the same predictive trash density, that kind of thing. You know, it wouldn't surprise me. And so you're, you know, looking at it, you're like, wow, the model worked to predict where there would be trash. And yeah, well, in that case, it's based on observation, right?
That would be slightly circular, wouldn't it?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's circular for those areas where there are trash data, but what I'm suggesting is that they could also then predict other areas based on those conditions, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at the
But your
coverage.
area happens to have a lot of very good trash data. So if I were trying to build a model, I might look to your area as a basis.
I'm trying to, yeah, look, okay, so they did, it's been a while since, this is just after our last meeting, I did this. I'm looking back now at their technical documentation for their statistical methods. And it does look like they included some actual survey data.
Yeah, I can't remember if they have reported that raw data set yet.
Well, it's for material types, certainly it's in there. Let's see, the predictors of interest correlated with litter density. Oh, so this is how they built the model. They use those data and use human development index, normalized index of education, income, life expectancy, and high proportion of developed high intensity land cover. So that was their response variable, is those monitored trash data.
Yeah.
To tune this model. So yes, they may have been in the training data set, some of them, for sure.
Yeah. But I do think that the point stands, Julian and Gary, that we should consider how to contribute to the trash free waters solicitation here. So that's maybe something we should circle back to.
Yeah, happy to participate any way I can help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want indication of interest no later than spring. It's pretty vague. So
The start of the end of spring.
yeah. I don't know. You want me to fill it out on behalf of the data
don't think it
subcommittee,
hurts.
or
Yeah.
should I just
Yeah,
fill it
I
for
think
myself?
I would say
Okay.
go for it.
Okay. I'll be the point of contact then
Thanks.
That'd be great.
for that.
Thanks for doing
I'm
that.
interested to get involved. Did anybody else attend the webinar that they did?
I did.
Yeah,
You did?
I did
Did you
too.
get anything win on how the algorithm was built, or what their data input plan is?
I kind of think that they're intentionally withholding some of the details until they publish a paper on it.
Hmm.
That's my perspective, because it wasn't, you know, really deep details. It was kind of like at a big picture level,
Mhm.
you know, what's going on. So I don't know. Oh, hopefully there will be a publication that comes out or some other, like for me, I want the raw data that supports the model in the code to be able to like fully understand what the model does and what its biases are and stuff. But I haven't seen that yet. So
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the biggest question we have, and it's come out during this meeting, is just being able to distinguish between the training data and the actual model outputs.
Yeah, I wonder if they've done that experiments to assess accuracy or precision of the predictions versus
Yeah.
a split data set not used for training.
Yeah.
Doesn't say anything about that in their methodology.
So Julian, what aside from attending the this ETAP webinar, what have you been up to? How's the portal coming?
Oh, Yeah, I actually did not go to the ETAP
Oh, okay.
the webinar. I missed it. And Tony, you brought up the plastics TAC, which I'm also on, and looking forward to delving into the draft on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's exciting. Let's see, for our project in the Bay Area, well, yeah, so our project in the Bay Area, one thing that I wanted to mention and maybe get the group's feedback a little bit, in particular, Wynn, since you were involved in that paper in Pinole, the AGU paper. Pinole is one of the cities we're working with, but they're actually pretty far along with their regular municipal data collection. Most of the city is already under full trash capture, and they have they don't have a lot of like ongoing data monitoring needs. So as you guys know from my past explanations of the project, we are trying to engage high school students in participatory monitoring, participatory science. And so in the city of Pinole, what we're planning to do is look at their new single-use plastic ordinance, which a ban on, I believe it's just food-related items, but it resulted from the work that Wynn and colleagues did in Pinole to collect data, present it to the city council, and get this ordinance passed. And so what we're looking at doing in Pinole is something of a pre and post assessment of the efficacy of the ban. And given that we don't have a ton of data collection before the ban, how to kind of show the efficacy after the ban goes into effect of reducing plastic foodware going into the storm drain system. And so we've just been talking about, a lot of like modeled data, and I'm wondering like if anybody has any thoughts on how to structure the way that we design the study with the high school students to do the monitoring to make it like really show.
Julian, when was the ban put into effect?
6 days ago or whatever, the first.
Okay. Then
8 days ago.
first of all, if you could do maintenance, if you could direct any maintenance to extract from the trash capture devices what is currently in there.
Yeah, this is time to
ASAP,
strike. Yeah.
right? So to be able to characterize what's currently waiting to be collected, that's a ready wealth of information. That's not about, kind of monitoring in a conventional sense on the street, but since you said they have full trash capture essentially in place, being able to extract and then measure what is essentially the last pass of pre-ban material, I think that's a critical thing to do. And to the extent that you can tell them to do it ASAP, then that gives you your before conditions. So that's something to bear in mind.
That's a great idea. We've never gotten into the full trash capture, like monitoring the I don't know what you call it, the effluent,
Yeah.
but stuff that they haul out of there.
It's not easy. What I'm suggesting is actually not easy. The reason being is that the way they do it is with massive trucks that are vacuum built.
Right.
They suck the stuff out, right? And so the reason why it's not easy is because the truck's not empty. It's full with stuff from other places. So what you would need to do is to do an assessment based on the very first, have an empty truck and then ask them to extract it from maybe a number of different things so that you're not basing it all on just a single site, but to do an average across a limited area and to pull the information, pull the sample out and then immediately extract it from the truck, or find some accommodation for doing that before they go out and complete the rest of their maintenance, right? Therefore, there's not mixing. Otherwise, it'd be hopelessly mixed if you get it
Right.
somewhere along the pathway. So that,
Right.
or to do an alternative extraction. So to find some other way to pull the material out of the screen or the centrifugal, hydrologic device. So being able to pull the stuff out is so very important. But that is like almost a perfect, measurement of what was on the street and what is now captured in those things.
It's a great idea. Yeah. Cool. I like that.
And then what you would have to do to have some the control and the measured thing is that you need to perform it again after some period of storms, driving material into the very same devices. But it's important to know where those devices were so that you can repeat that experiment or repeat the collection after some period of time. But it has to be, of course, after storms, or else they'll say, yeah, there's no trash in here. And,
Right.
and it's because you just haven't had a round of storms.
Right.
I wonder too if there's enough of a lag period right now where like what you see on the streets for at least the next couple months is still gonna have like that single-use stuff in it, because the residents, I mean, it hasn't rained.
Yeah.
Not looking, I mean, I guess it's raining in the Bay Area. It hasn't rained down here, but so you're gonna have a pretty long residence time between rain events. And then also, I think that ordinance, I haven't read it like in detail, but most of these types of ordinances say that there's some sort of grace period. It's like
Yeah.
a year or two as you're trying to shift into this new thing. So what you could do is you could watch that in your street data of like over time, it should get less and less of this single use stuff. And yeah, I think you still should be able to see a signal in your street data.
Yeah.
Start monitoring pretty
The
soon.
other thing to bear in mind, Julian, is that it's important to note what is the maintenance cycle between extractions, so that you can try to match that as best possible when you perform the second round of collection. But Wynn is right that, first of all, there's material resident in the environment that hasn't yet passed into the trash capture devices. So it's stuff that's hung up in vegetation or what have you. So you have to bear that in mind. So there's a lag there, but also to distinguish that there's also a lag of inventory, right? So those it's good to know just how long they can continue to use on those materials. They can't rebuy them. They're not, or they wouldn't be wise to do so, but they might be able to, a small, mom and pop shop who has, plastic bags can continue to use those until they've run out or until a period of time, right?
Does anyone know of any published studies, or like not peer-reviewed published, but just like did BASMA do any studies on full capture monitoring?
Yeah, so right now BAMS, the kind of BASMA successor, is doing an assessment of stormwater outfalls. So they are downstream of trash capture devices. They have nets on the ends of stormwater outfalls where they're assessing the effectiveness of the trash capture devices, or that's one of the questions they're trying to address. They've run into a lot of problems with just even getting those things into place. It's not a trivial matter to put nets on stormwater outfalls for permitting, for talking to DFW and a number of different organizations to get that going. So I'm not holding this up as a model to follow, but that's what they've been doing, and they will be issuing a report. It must be maybe a year out from now, but it will be assessing the effectiveness of the trash capture device, the amount of bypass there is, but also assessing the equivalency of training measures, signage, things that that they assert as a city is equivalent to the full trash capture. So that's there are a number of questions that they're trying to address, but it's more or less region wide. So they have multiple outfalls across different areas that they're monitoring.
What about like looking at like loading and speciation in the stuff that comes out of the devices?
They're looking at that too. So they're
Okay.
retaining the samples. They are categorizing the material that comes out of it.
Okay.
For
Alright.
both stormwater outfalls, I should also mention that they are doing a limited amount of in-stream sampling as well.
Right. Okay. Thanks for those ideas. That's great. I mean, you know, we only have been focusing on, you know, the on-land monitoring, but I think high school students would probably love to, you know, pull up some of the covers on those things and look in and learn about that part too.
I should also mention one more thing, sorry, but Diana Lynn, whom I mentioned, is leading the plastics monitoring strategy. I'm co-leading nominally, but she is also working with the city of Santa Barbara on a experiment, a kind of environmental experiment to determine whether trash capture devices are net sinks or net generators of microplastics over time. So yeah, so this is looking at the influent and effluent and determining whether there's microplastics. So as the material inside the trash capture device break down through exposure to wind, rain, you know, moving water, etc., does it degrade to the point where it bypasses, right? And then as microplastic, does it bypass? Because it's not designed to capture microplastics. So do macro plastics enter and then microplastics escape? That's a kind of question that we have. So
that there's degradation happening inside the devices.
Inside, yeah. Trying to figure out if
Like
there's degradation or transformation of macro to micro over time and therefore bypass. One theory we have, one kind of I should not say theory, I'm talking to scientists. One hypothesis we have is that the leaf litter and other natural materials, which make up the kind of bulk of what is captured in these things, end up being a kind of secondary filter to the primary design filter that might, in effect, harness or retain even microplastics beyond what is designed by the engineered filter. So we'll be extracting materials, much as I described for what I was suggesting you might want to do, with the idea of looking at and doing microplastic samples as well as macroplastic characterization.
Yeah.
Julian, if you haven't thought about this already, one other consideration is the street sweeping trucks. If there's you can eliminate some of that lag problem of residence time of trash. Street sweepers are going by regularly. Maybe ameliorate some of the logistical problems of getting the actual trash out of the sweepers. And probably the person to talk to would be Karen Ashby, who's working, I think, in Stockton to do exactly that. They're trying to assess the effectiveness of street sweeping for removing trash, trying to sort of find a different pathway to compliance for that city. So Karen Ashby at Larry Walker is leading that study. I don't think they've had a report or anything like that come out yet, but it may be just like a more direct way, eliminating some of the hydrologic factors to get to exactly what materials are being deposited on the road that, you know, pre-post.
SWRP is also leading a street sweeping study as part of the Santa Barbara project.
Right.
Thank you all for those great ideas. I'll update you next time.
I think one takeaway from all of this and the attention to the trash capture devices that I take away personally is just these things have been deployed across California aggressively as a really strong measure to capture the trash that's already on our streets. But they were never deployed to capture microplastics. That isn't what they're specifically not designed to capture microplastics. So what is the effect of that? But also then how does bypass work with these things? And do they really, what gets bypassed? What goes into the bypass when storms are more intense as they are these days? So, it would be, we talked about the fires in Pacific Palisades, and it's just, we have just ever more increasing intensity for these climatic events, and including storms. So what are we dealing with here with this safety net that we have, and how effective they are for capturing microplastics, and with Tom Novotny capturing cigarette butts? What happens when those cigarette butts inevitably become microfibers? Do they just escape and make their way into the ocean? So we don't know.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I sent a link to a paper that we just published this week that describes a cigarette butt cleanup project, basically to demonstrate how the reaccumulation occurs so readily with or without cleanup events, and also being dependent, as you pointed out earlier, on land use, as well as some other kinds of things that we measured, walkability and other kinds of characteristics of the population. And it's striking to see that in 8 cities with we started out with 60 census blocks, and then repeat on a subsample of those, the reoccurrence or the reaccumulation is just, sort of like 100% and of cigarette butts. And the other part is that when you can extrapolate it out to sort of the entire annual sort of accumulation, it reaches into some astounding figure, like 200 million in 8 cities in San Diego alone. And these things, again, they don't really go away that fast because they are plastic, and 99.8% of the cigarette butts are, and 94% of the tobacco products that were picked up were cigarette butts. Some of the other stuff includes vapes and packages and things like that, but it's cigarette butts that are the dominant factor. So anyway, it's another way of, and this is not a practical solution. It was an experiment to actually see what kind of a sterilization of tobacco product waste was in kind of representative census tracts in the city, and what the reaccumulation means, and demonstrates that picking up trash, especially specifically tobacco product waste, doesn't work. It has no value in terms of any kind of reduction, because it just keeps coming back, even in a state where we're down below 10% prevalence of smoking. It's still millions and millions and millions and billions even. So it just adds support to source reduction as something that we would still try to push forward. And in fact, Santa Cruz, as you I think have heard, is the first jurisdiction in the world to ban the sale of filtered cigarettes. Now that won't do any good. Wow. Because they're all around us, but at least it was a tip of the spear demonstration that a local community can say, we don't want this stuff, and it does affect us. So anyway, more research is being done on the microplastics resulting from broken down tobacco cigarette filters. I just got a paper to review on that. So there's more and more research that's now being done on the microplastic aspects of cigarette butts, which are macroplastics.
Tom, regarding the reaccumulation, is the assertion that the cigarette butts are driven to these locations by wind, by other environmental factors, or they're directly deposited by people?
Yeah, it's people.
Okay, yeah.
I have a nerdy question about cigarette butts. Would you consider them microplastics or macroplastics? Because
butts themselves, the filter itself is macro because it's greater than 5 millimeters.
Okay.
But when they break down, they become microplastics. They're fibers, microfibers, and meet the definitions for that as plastic microfibers.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I always see, because it's always like the cutoff example that people give when I see like trash surveys. It's like anything the size of a cigarette butt or larger, and it's like, oh, okay. Well, if you just say like larger than a cigarette butt instead of the and part, then it's micro. It's like right on the edge.
Yeah. No, they're macros for sure, to start out at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why the trash amendment to the Clean Water Act actually impacts butt waste, because it's, required not to be permitted, in the trash capture and storm drains.
Yeah. Win, what's up with you?
Thanks. Yeah, so let's see. I'm currently working on, in the trash world, I'm working on this paper from the Pacific Crest Trail survey. I was gonna pull up actually and just show you all some of the cool findings that we had from this study and get like some initial feedback on it too, if y'all are interested real quick. So we surveyed the entire Pacific Crest Trail, conducting, I think it was like 200 trash surveys across the Pacific Crest Trail every 10 miles. Um, and we really wanted to know like how much trash is out there, make some estimates about, and better understand like what are some real monitoring or management strategies that we could make. So one of the figures that's I think really interesting is when you take the trash count that we found on the trail segments and you look at the relationship to road proximity, there's a pretty log linear relationship between those two variables. I think the R squared's like 10 or something, so it doesn't explain all the variability for sure, but it is strongly related, which would make a lot of sense, if like you're at a trailhead, for example, versus like way out in the wilderness, you find a lot more trash at the trailhead nearby a road. Um, and this figure, this one is the one I'm kind of obsessed with right now because I think that it hints at like some different management strategies you could make. So one of them is like, well, if you're gonna do a cleanup, do it at trailheads. You don't need to necessarily exert a lot of effort way out in the wilderness compared to at a trailhead. Another thing is this talk about like what are the priority land use regions on roadsides. I really want to get after a number of like how much trash is okay. And I think that that number can be found in the wilderness. So I think that if we try to look at like what is the average condition of a pristine region in the wilderness today, that's the number I want to try to estimate with this relationship here. And so
Isn't pristine
using
by
this,
definition
what's
not,
that?
isn't pristine by its definition answering your question of
That's a
how
good
much
point.
trash
Yeah.
added?
Maybe
But
that's no trash. Yeah.
is pristine by your definition like 10,000 meters from the road?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Okay.
trying. Yeah, I'm trying to get after that of like what does it look like? What's the average condition of like 10 kilometers away from a road in the
Yeah.
wilderness for trash? And I want, because when I go out there, my experience is pristine. It's beautiful. There's barely any trash. And I want the roads to look like that too. And what would that take? So what that would take is it's about half a piece of trash per kilometer. That's the estimate here. Um, and anyways, I've been thinking about writing like a comment about this because there's, the recommended like, oh, how much trash is okay by, I know like Caltrans recently released this proposal for changing that number. I forget what the number is of like how much trash per acre per year is allowable. But what I want to push us toward is like this concept of how can we get like what's the real baseline out there in quote unquote pristine areas? Obviously, zero is better, but because nobody accepts zero right now in management spheres, we might be able to kind of direct them toward like this concept of, the wilderness, bringing the wilderness to the pristineness of the wilderness to our everyday experience on the roadsides. Um, so yeah, that's my stump speech for today.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks.
Very cool.
Wendy, have you played with the use of count data versus I mean,
Volume.
are you also looking at volume or weight? Because I think of like backcountry
Yeah.
trash as being like small stuff that like a conscientious backpacker like accidentally dropped, or like, you know, maybe it's a little piece of a energy bar wrapper that fell out of someone's pocket versus like
Right.
chucking stuff out the window, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We have not measured, we didn't measure the volume or the mass of the trash on this survey. Unfortunately, we thought about it. We could try to estimate it using count to mass conversion, like the average mass of each piece of trash. But I feel like that conversion is a little fuzzy. And so I don't
Especially
know.
for this.
I've done it in the past, and it could be useful to add to this. So thanks for recommending that.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, because I'm thinking like a car dumped into a ravine next to the road might be one,
Right.
and a corner of a power
Yeah.
bar wrapper is one. So they're
I
not
know.
quite equivalent,
Yeah.
right?
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's always the challenge
And
if
and
you
as you
don't
can
measure
imagine,
on things.
my interest is how much, how many cigarette butts did you find? You know?
Right. Let me show you. We have the tobacco waste category.
Oh, good. That needs.
Yeah, tobacco.
Not huge
Uh,
smokers, those long distance trail walkers, huh?
yeah, I mean we did find some, it's up there in the like top list.
That's
Yeah,
percentage. That's percentage basis.
yeah, it's a percent base.
Oh,
And we
that's
have
not
a
nothing.
we have a unique way of calculating the like average percent. So we take the percent from every single survey and then average them across. And this gives you, I think, a more robust metric for like the condition of these types. Um, but yeah, it's like, yeah, 5% or something like that on average, and then some variability around
By
that.
count. It's
By
by
count.
count.
By
Yeah.
count. Yep.
Okay.
This is so
Yeah.
cool. You guys did this when you first posted about it. I was like, wow, this is so what a great
Hey,
excuse to hike the PCT.
I know, right? Yeah.
And as I
Oh,
recall, it was generally pretty clean, right? When I
was.
looked at it, right?
Yeah.
Pretty clean, and near roads is when
Yeah.
you get trashy.
Right.
It lines up.
30% of the segments had zero trash. So,
Yeah.
it's like a glass half full or half empty kind of scenario of like, well, yeah, it's like most of the trail is quite clean.
Yeah.
And I think the people who are going out there in the wilderness are doing a good job of trying to pick up after themselves and others too. But even with that, we do still see on one of our transects, this photo. Am I sharing my screen right now?
Mhm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh yeah, okay. Uh this photo here of this it's like coyote poo, and it has plastic film in it.
Hmm.
And so
Wow.
like even though these areas are quite pristine, there are still impacts that we observe directly on one of our transects, which is kind of surprising. You would think like, oh, like half of the kilometers don't even have trash in them, but the trash that is there often is like coated in food or other things that are
Yeah.
attracting animals, so they'll find it, they'll seek it out. And even though it's not very abundant, they're still being impacted by it to some extent. So
It's the when you're proposition of a higher bar wilderness pristine, I would say that that's definitely higher than what's you probably already know than what's
yeah,
currently characterized as the goal.
right,
Because it sounds like that the goal may actually be shifting, because the goal being right now have the appearance of a road be equivalent to a full what would escape a full trash capture device. But from
right,
the prior discussion, it sounds like we are still figuring out what that is.
right,
Right? It
right,
may be
yeah,
higher than we think, but certainly it's
right,
more trash than what you indicated as that pristine
yeah,
level in the wilderness is acceptable per the current
yeah.
standard in the for the trash amendments.
Yeah, I want to challenge that. I'm probably gonna get, some pushback against it because in practicality and in costs, but I don't want to get to a place where we're accepting this like really filthy level of trash in our everyday experience. That's what I guess I'm worried about, is that the low condition or how much is escaping the trash capture devices is still like quite bad.
And not to be a Debbie Downer here, but I also wonder, based on, these kind of more visual observations, just how being further away from the road and less trafficked means that the trash that is there is just more degraded and less visible, right? It might be covered with dirt.
Yeah,
There might be just as many cigarette butts
I
there, but
know.
they are
Yeah.
invisible because they become microplastic, they become fibers, and therefore you can't see them
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Or they could be washed off the trail and into the deeper vegetation. And so there might be just as much trash, but it's just
Yeah.
less visible given the conditions.
We have microplastic data that we're assessing right now. So hopefully I'll be able to share that in the sometime near the summer. I think we'll be finished with that. There's definitely a lot of microplastics in, even like we took pretty small samples, like a liter of sediment, and you're finding like, I don't know, on the order of like tens to hundreds of microplastics in there. So
In river, or just like along the trail?
on the trail itself. Yeah, we did on trail and slightly off the trail to kind of get after that, like,
Yeah,
is it coming from the trail or is it, atmospheric deposition question?
yeah, yeah. Wow.
And just to highlight the scale of this accomplishment, to my knowledge, this is the largest wilderness transect of this kind ever performed
Yeah, yeah.
in the
Wow.
world, probably.
That's huge. Yeah, I doubt
that's
anybody's gonna
cool.
touch it anytime soon either, because it's
Yeah,
so much effort, like 6 months of hiking.
pretty cool.
Who funded this?
We got funding from McPike Zima, who's one of our family foundations, and the Richard Lounsbury Foundation
Wow, that's
to
great.
fund it. Yeah. So, and then also the two people. My wife was one of the people who did this, and her friend Macy Gustavus, who's got her master's in plastic pollution research. And I mean, honestly, they didn't get paid. They did this like pro bono, so they are probably the largest funders of the
Oh, wow.
project. Yeah. They just got their expenses covered. Yeah, I realize we're out of time though.
Yeah, I have to get going, but
Yeah.
yeah, this is great, Win, and great all of you. Thank you so much for your contributions today. It's amazing to see what you're all doing.
Good to see you all.
Good to see
Have
you
a good
all.
week.
Happy
Yeah.
New Year.
Great start to the year.
Happy New Year to you.
See you soon.
See you later.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Yeah.